Rob, you and I have been talking for some time about the fact that it is not a prediction. It's not whether we hope it will happen, whether it should or should not happen. It's just something that is happening. And that is the death and the disappearance of physical media. We've seen sales for, 4K and DVDs and Blu-rays drop like a stone. The number one producer in the world of Blu-ray players just announced a few months ago that they were getting out of the Blu-ray disc player game altogether. We've seen it fall more and more. Now, we're starting to hear a little bit from the content producers themselves. A report has just come out. I believe it's originally from Digibits. This is coming to us from our friends over at Slashfilm, who writes, "Hold on to your physical media, because it may start to look pretty lonely on your shelves over the next few years. The demand for physical media has slowly, not all that slowly, Slashfilm, the demand for physical media has slowly stagnated as streaming has become king, but the promise of new 4K Ultra HD editions of catalog titles has always kept a light burning for the home video format, but not for Disney." According to a new report, the studio has reportedly halted production on future Disney 4K physical media releases of catalog titles, including the entire 20th Century Studios library. This does not bode well for 4K releases of classics like The French Connection, which is awesome, by the way, Fight Club, and Aliens. The Digital Bits reports that Disney does not have any plans for future 4K Ultra HD catalog releases apart from Disney, Pixar, Star Wars, and Marvel-related projects. The outlet reports that Disney is abandoning 4K physical media in order to focus on building its new streaming service, Disney Plus. Rob, it should be pointed out here that what they have not said, because I know some people are going to freak out, but one of the things, what they did not say here is, as of today, we're not making any more discs at all, period. That is not what was being said today. It is, we are stopping production on 4K Ultra HD. We might make an exception for Star Wars and Marvel, blah, blah. But it is inevitably the latest domino to fall in this progression we are heading towards the death of physical media. I mean, it'll always be around in some shape or form, but for the most part, as a popular format, it is going away. We've seen the producers of the hardware getting out of the business, and now we're starting to see signs of one of the biggest content creators out there, Disney, kind of signaling that they're looking at ending their run on physical media as well. Rob, you take a look at this report today. What do you think about this, and what's your reaction?
Well, as somebody once said, I am the pharaoh of physical media. And, I've worked, and I worked in creating physical media. I mean, as you know, I was talking ad infinitum about doing the Hills Run Red special features this year on a film I produced, which we did for Scream Factory. I think with Disney's earning reports, I think deciding to not produce 4K discs, especially from the Fox catalog, is short-sighted, at least for now. Because while it is true that physical media has been dropping in terms of sales every year, double digits, talking 15% a year, and the market is about to $4 billion a year in physical media sales, it's still $4 billion a year. And with movie theaters not open and actually disc sales spiking during this coronavirus epidemic, I would say it was a little short-sighted. Now, we know, John, absolutely, that with the advent of Disney Plus, Disney has no incentive to release their catalog titles or their new titles on 4K discs. I mean, I always thought that their Skywalker Saga 4K box set was their really last hurrah. And at the end of last year, they were putting out all their animated classics and Pixar movies. It was almost like a 4K fire sale. However, there's a lot of incredible classic films. There's a huge hunger for 4K discs. And right now, 4K discs are still better than streaming in terms of their quality, their reliability. And there are, how can you not to release things like Fight Club and Aliens on 4K? Those are exactly the titles that sell the best in the format because they're reference quality titles. And like you said, French Connection or movies like Patton, there's an incredible depth of the 20th Century Fox library that if we're not going to get on 4K, that's a huge loss. Now, I have most of these titles on Blu-ray, but I would love to get them on 4K UHD with Dolby Vision. And unfortunately, I think especially now, it's short-sighted. It's short-sighted. Now, we all know that physical media will die, John. It's an inevitability. It's going to die. It's not even going to be a niche market because the niche market will have been niched out. You know, all the titles anybody wants will be sold, and they have been. But I think, unfortunately, I think this is a premature move by Disney. I understand they're focusing on Disney Plus, but the Fox titles they're talking about are not going to go on to Disney Plus. And I think it's still, you put out Fight Club, you put out Aliens, you put out French Connection, you put out Patton, you put out any of these great catalog titles in 4K, they are going to sell. Now, the one thing that they can do that they haven't said is they can license these titles out to other companies. Arrow, for instance, one of my favorite boutique agency companies, they've done a lot of genre films, horror titles. They're putting out their first 4K title this month. They're putting out the new 4K restoration of Universal's Flash Gordon. And that was done by Studio Canal. I think it's that might be what happens. But it's amazing to me that a studio like Disney, who owns Fox, would license their titles out to someone else to sell. But that's what they've been doing with their Touchstone and Hollywood Pictures titles.
You know, it's interesting too, because I think the other thing you got to keep in mind here is that there is the sense of what is their priority, right? Because remember, it's not just Disney Plus. Disney Plus isn't the only
Right.
bullet in their chamber for what their streaming strategy is. They have their international Star service that they're developing now, and they have been very quietly but very noticeably investing even more and more into the Hulu platform.
Yes,
Like
they
they
have.
are really got a thing for Hulu. So if their whole idea is that they want to get people on those services, then it kind of, I could see an argument being made that it becomes counterproductive to your main goal if you continue to offer alternatives to that.
Yep.
So it may be short-sighted, but as you were pointing out, it is nonetheless kind of a sign of the times at the moment. The question here for you guys is this: what do you think about this move? Maybe you think this is just a blip and really isn't all that significant. Maybe you think it's even more significant than we're making it out to be. Jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys.